The Sunday school lesson for April 9th, 2023 is Disciples Come to Believe the Resurrection. Luke chapter 24, verses 13 through 27 and verses 30 through 31. Welcome, viewers and subscribers. Last week's Sunday school lesson, The Empty Tomb, based on Luke chapter 24, verses 1 through 12, is actually the backstory to today's lesson. I will put that link in the description box. The lesson today will be highlighted with vivid illustrations. Enjoy. Key verse, key text. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. Luke chapter 24, verse 31. Verse 13. Now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. Verse 14. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. Verses 15 through 16. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. Verse 17. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. Verse 18. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" Verse 19. "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people." Verses 20 through 21. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since all this took place. Verses 22 through 23. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Verse 24. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus. Verse 25. He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken." Verse 26. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? Verse 27. And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. Verse 30. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Verse 31. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. A brief summary. Jerusalem was the largest city in the region, perhaps 30,000 to 50,000 in population. It was surrounded by many small villages of a few hundred people each. The residents of these villages tended vineyards, fields, orchards, flocks, and herds. The temple city of Jerusalem was fed economically by those villagers who traveled to Jerusalem several times a year for festivals and to pay an annual temple tax. Emmaus was one such village. Two disciples were headed toward that village on Sunday morning, talking freely, unconstrained by the atmosphere of fear in Jerusalem. They had much to talk about, given recent events. We are not told where Jesus came from, but by the time they were aware of his presence, he was walking alongside them, but they were kept from recognizing him. Jesus drew them into a conversation. Their reply to him gives us an understanding of what at least some followers of Jesus believed about him, that he was a prophet whom they had hoped was the Messiah. They had heard the reports that his body was missing, but did not grasp what it meant. Jesus began explaining why it was necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things. He explained by referring to Moses and all the prophets, the Old Testament. As they sat at a meal together, something remarkable happened. Whatever had been keeping the two disciples from recognizing Jesus was removed, and they now realized that the risen Lord had been sitting right there with them. No sooner did this glorious realization dawn on these two than Jesus was gone. Thank you so much for watching. Join me soon for the next backstory. Stay safe.